Screams erupted from the base of the dorm building as thick, oily smoke billowed into the night sky. I was back. I had returned to the very day I charged into that inferno to save the girl of my dreams, only to have her stab me in the back, accusing me of arson and assault. I was back at the starting point of the nightmare, where my parents disowned me, my best friend sold me out, and I was eventually beaten to death in a cold prison cell. Standing in the crowd, I looked up at the towering flames and smiled. Your judgment day has arrived. The fire licked the blackened brick of the dormitory like a serpent's tongue. The symphony of the apocalypse surrounded me. Girls shrieking, glass shattering under the heat, and the panicked roars of the crowd. My heart, however, was a block of ice. In my past life, this was the moment I heard Mia Sterling was trapped on the 6th floor. Without a second thought, I had charged in. I'd used a wet towel to cover my face, crawled through the suffocating haze, and kicked down a warped door with nothing but sheer adrenaline. I carried her out of that hell on my back. I became a hero, and then I became a predator. When Mia woke up, she didn't thank me. Instead, in front of the cameras and the cops, she pointed a trembling finger at me. She claimed I had set the fire myself just to trap her and force myself on her. My parents, two people who valued their social standing above their own blood, didn't even ask for my side. My father slapped me in front of the whole world before kneeling at the feet of the Sterlings, publicly disowning me to save the Miller family name. My best friend, Nate Brooks, testified in court that he had seen me carrying a gasoline canister toward the dorms. 10 years. I was sentenced to a decade. In prison, I was cornered by thugs hired by Kyle Vanderbilt, the real arsonist and Mia's obsessive pursuer. They broke my arms and legs. I died like a stray dog on a concrete floor, feeling my life leak away through the agonizing cracks in my bones. I hated them. I hated this world that twisted black into white. I hated every single person who pushed me into that abyss. If I could just do it over. Someone's still in there. Mia Sterling is on the 6th floor. Somebody help her. A piercing scream jolted me from the depths of my memories. I looked up at the 6th floor window, bathed in a hellish orange glow. Mia. My chance to do it over was finally here. The crowd was retreating. The sirens of the fire trucks were approaching, but everyone knew they wouldn't arrive in time to save someone in that room. The smile on my face widened, tinged with a hint of madness and pure, unfiltered catharsis. In my last life, I saved you, and you destroyed me. This time, I'm still going to save you, because only by keeping you alive can I make you feel a despair far worse than death. I snatched a bottle of water from a stunned student nearby, twisted the cap, and dumped it over my head, soaking my clothes. Then, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, I lunged into the burning building like a predator closing in on its prey. Was that Chase Miller? Is he insane? He's throwing his life away for a girl. I left their voices behind. Heat slammed into me, scorching my skin. The smoke was a physical weight in my lungs, but the fire in my eyes burned hotter than the building around me. I covered my face with my soaked sleeve and navigated the darkness and smoke with the precision of a ghost. I knew this path. I had walked it in my nightmares for years. Room 602. I kicked the door open. It was searing to the touch. Mia was sprawled on the floor, unconscious, her perfect face streaked with soot. I looked down at her with none of the pity I'd felt before. I didn't pick her up immediately. Instead, I pulled out my phone. In my last life, I was destroyed because I had no evidence. This time, I was going to hand-deliver everyone's tickets to hell. I tapped the voice recorder, tucked the phone into my inner jacket pocket, and angled it so it would catch everything. Then I bent down and hoisted Mia over my shoulder like a heavy sack of trash. She was so light, and yet this fragile body had crushed my entire life. As I turned to run out, the phone captured a faint, panicked mumble from her lips. Kyle, the fire. I am scared. A cold smirk touched my lips. Kyle Vanderbilt. Perfect. The first piece of evidence was secured. The moment I burst out of the fire with Mia on my back, the world seemed to freeze. Flashbulbs erupted like lightning. I was the center of the frame, the hero of the hour. He's out. He got her. My God, that was incredible. I gasped for air, letting the mixture of ash and sweat sting my eyes, but my gaze remained sharp as a blade. I scanned the crowd. I saw the university dean's relieved face. I saw the awe in the eyes of my classmates. I saw my parents on the edge of the crowd, their faces a mix of vanity and secondhand fear. And further back, I saw a young man in designer clothes looking frantic. Kyle Vanderbilt. I recognized him instantly. In my past life, this trust fund brat had tried to set up a grand romantic gesture with hundreds of candles at the base of the dorm. He'd accidentally ignited a pile of recycling. And when the fire went out of control, he used his father's wealth to buy everyone off and turn the hero into a scapegoat. Our eyes met. His were filled with guilt and malice. Mine were filled with an unmasked promise of slaughter. Kyle flinched, instinctively taking a step back. Paramedics rushed in, taking Mia from my arms and loading her into an ambulance. "Hey kid, you okay? Get in. We need to check you out," a nurse shouted. I shook my head, my voice sounding like it had been dragged over gravel. "I'm Fine." My eyes landed on a familiar figure. Nate Brooks, my best friend. He was running toward me, his face a mask of genuine concern. "Chase, you're freaking crazy, man. You almost gave me a heart attack." He swung a fist in my shoulder in a playful, brotherly gesture. I looked at him, at the face I had once trusted with my life, and felt nothing but ice. In my previous life, this man had sold me out for the promise of a corporate internship at Vanderbilt's father's company. "I'm fine," I repeated, subtly stepping out of his reach. Nate froze for a second before recovering, slinging an arm around my shoulder for the benefit of the reporters. "That's just how he is. Quiet guy, but the most loyal friend you'll ever have." The cameras swiveled toward us. The dean walked over, gripping my hand tightly. "Chase Miller, on behalf of Northwood University, thank you for your bravery. We will be nominating you for a Medal of Valor." I looked at his bureaucratic smile and felt only disgust. In my last life, this same man was the first to sign my expulsion papers to protect the school's reputation. I let them play their parts. My parents finally pushed through. My mother grabbed me, tears streaming down her face. "You stupid boy. If something happened to you, how could I live?" My father stood tall, his voice stiff but tinged with a hint of pride. "Reckless. Don't ever do that again." He paused, then added, "But at least you didn't embarrass the Miller name." Embarrass the name. I remembered his words as the police took me away in the other life. "The Miller family has no room for a piece of filth like you." I let them hold me, feigning exhaustion while I counted the seconds in my head. The ambulance had left. Mia will be waking up soon. The real show was about to begin. I gently pushed my mother away and looked at the dean. "Sir, I'd like to go to the hospital to check on Mia." "Of course. I'll have a campus car take you right away," he said, eager to please. Kyle's face paled further. Nate whispered in my ear, "Chase, you look like hell. You sure you're up for this?" I glanced at him. "Just a little smoke in my lungs, Nate." As I sat in the back of the car, I closed my eyes. Everything was following the script of my past life. But this time, I was the one holding the pen. "Mia, Kyle, Nate. And my dear parents, are you ready for the grand finale I prepared for you?" The hospital smelled of sterile antiseptic. The moment I reached the ER, I was swamped by reporters. "Chase, were you afraid? Are you and Mia a couple?" I didn't answer. Guided by campus security, I made my way to Mia's room. Her parents were waiting outside, looking frantic, alongside a brooding Kyle Vanderbilt. Seeing me, Mia's mother grabbed my hands, her eyes welling up. "Chase, thank you. Thank you for saving our Mia." I looked at her and felt a cold sneer forming internally. She had been just as grateful last time, and then she was the first to scream that I should be castrated when the accusations flew. "It was nothing," I said tonelessly. The door opened, and a doctor stepped out. "She's awake. She's stable, but very shaken. Family can go in, but please keep it quiet." Mia's parents and Kyle scrambled inside. I stood my ground. The dean nudged me. "Go on, Chase. You're the man of the hour." I nodded obediently and followed them in. Mia lay in the hospital bed, her face pale, looking every bit the tragic victim. When she saw her parents, the waterworks started. "Dad, Mom." Then, her eyes flickered past them to Kyle, filled with a flash of panic and reliance. Finally, her gaze landed on me. For a split second, I saw a spark of pure, venomous resolve in her eyes. She had made her choice. "Mia, honey, how do you feel? Is anything hurting?" her mother asked. Mia didn't answer. She simply raised a trembling hand and pointed it directly at me. Every eye in the room followed her finger. Here it was, the moment of judgment. It was him. Mia's voice was high and jagged, filled with rehearsed terror. It was him. He set the fire. He wanted to trap me in there and hurt me. The room went bone silent. The shock was palpable. The reporters were the first to recover, their shutters clicking like machine gun fire. The dean's smile evaporated. My parents turned a ghostly shade of white. In the corner, I saw Kyle's lips twitch with a hidden smirk of triumph. "Mia, what are you saying?" her mother stammered. "Mom." Mia sobbed hysterically. "It was him. I smelled the gasoline on him. He didn't come in to save me. He came in to take advantage of the chaos. He's a monster." Her words were nuclear strike. "My God, is it true? The hero is the arsonist. You never truly know a person, do you?" The whispers began to sting like needles. But this time I wasn't angry. I wasn't desperate. I was almost amused. I watched her performance, the tears, the trembling lip, and found it pathetic. Suddenly, a figure blurred in front of me. Crack! The slap echoed through the sterile room. My father, my dear, noble father, had struck me with everything he had. My cheek burned, and I tasted the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. You animal, he hissed, his body shaking with rage. How could we raise a piece of trash like you? My mother rushed forward, but not to comfort me. She threw herself onto the floor, kneeling before Mia's parents. I'm so sorry. Please, we didn't teach him this. We disown him. He's nothing to us. Just please, don't sue us in the ground. She began to wail, her forehead hitting the floor over and over. What a familiar scene. What a disgusting sight. In my last life, these were the two people who pushed me into the dark. I looked at their pathetic, ugly displays. I looked at the malice in Mia's eyes and the arrogant smirk on Kyle's face. Slowly, I raised my hand and wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth. And then I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a roar of pure, unadulterated joy. I laughed until tears pricked my eyes. The room stared at me like I had lost my mind. What are you laughing at? My father asked, his voice trembling. I stopped, my eyes turning into shards of ice as I scanned the room. Finally, I locked onto Mia. I'm laughing at you, I said, my voice low and steady. Because you're already dead, and you don't even know it. How dare you? Mia's father roared. You do this to my daughter, and then threaten her in her hospital bed? Get him out of here. Arrest this prick. Mia's mother shrieked. Kyle stood there, the picture of smug satisfaction. He thought he'd won. He thought I was just a cornered dog barking at the moon. My parents were drowning in shame, my father reaching out to hit me again before the dean held him back. Chase, calm down. If you have something to say it to the police, the dean shouted. I ignored them all. I kept my eyes on Mia's crumbling mask of a face. Mia Sterling, are you absolutely sure I'm the one who set that fire? I took a step forward. The room went quiet again, suppressed by a sudden, heavy pressure in the air. Of course it was you, she stammered. I saw you. Is that so? I smiled and reached into my pocket, slowly pulling out my phone. Then let's hear what the fire has to say. I hit play. The recording blared through the hospital room speakers. The sound of wind, the crackle of flames, my heavy, rhythmic breathing, and then a woman's faint, sobbing mumble. Kyle, the fire. I am scared. Kyle, please come. I'm so scared. The recording was clear as a bell. Kyle's smirk vanished. Mia's face drained of every drop of color, turning whiter than the sheets beneath her. She began to shake uncontrollably. No, that's not me, she whispered, her voice breaking. Not you. I stepped closer, turning the volume to max. Listen again, Mia. Is it your voice or not? The words Kyle, the fire, I am scared, looped over and over, hitting Mia and Kyle like physical blows. Nobody in that room was an idiot. If I were the arsonist, why was Mia calling for another man in her delirium? Why was she calling for Kyle Vanderbilt? Why did she sound like she was waiting for him? The reporter's cameras swiveled in a synchronized blur toward the pale, shaking Mia and the sweating Kyle Vanderbilt. Wait, what does this mean? Is there more to the story? Who is this Kyle? My parents froze, my mother still on her knees, her face a mask of confusion and shock. No, it's fake. He edited it. He's a liar. Mia screamed, her voice hitting a glass-shattering pitch. Edited. I looked toward a young woman in the crowd of reporters. Riley Thompson from the student paper. Riley, you know tech. Is a raw, unedited audio file easy to fake on the fly? A professional forensic sweep will prove its authenticity in minutes. Riley blinked, her eyes alight with the realization of a massive scoop. Furthermore, I said, waving the phone, I kept the recorder running the whole time I was in that building, just in case. I didn't expect people to be quite this evil, but I'm glad I prepared. I looked at Mia and Kyle. Well, still think I'm the one who set the fire. Beads of sweat rolled down Kyle's forehead. You're full of it. A muffled recording doesn't prove anything. You probably hired someone to mimic her voice. Mimic? I laughed. The police can be the judge of that. As if on cue, the door burst open. Two uniformed officers stepped in, their expressions grim. Who is Chase Miller? The lead officer asked. I raised my hand. That's me. We received a report of arson and attempted assault. You're a suspect. You need to come with us. Wait, I said perfectly calm. I handed the phone to the officer. Officer, this is a recording of the entire rescue. It contains evidence regarding the real source of the fire. And I'd like to file a formal countercharge for defamation and filing a false police report. I pointed a finger directly at Kyle Vanderbilt. I believe he's your man. The world seemed to hit the mute button. Every eye landed on Kyle. He looked like a frog pinned to a board. Mouth agape, shaking, unable to find a single word of defense. You're lying, he finally wheezed, but the words were hollow. The lead officer was a veteran. He looked at Kyle's reaction, then at Mia, who was trembling like a leaf, and a flicker of understanding crossed his face. He didn't waste time. He took the phone and turned to his partner. Take Mr. Miller, the complainants, and Mr. Vanderbilt down to the station for questioning. No, I'm not going. Mia shrieked. I'm the victim. Why do I have to go? Cooperating with an investigation is a legal requirement. Miss, the officer said firmly. Mia's parents tried to intervene, but they were brushed aside. Kyle tried to put up a fight, blustering about how his father, George Vanderbilt, would have their badges, but one sharp look from the officer shut him down. The hero-turned-villain narrative had collapsed into a farce within minutes. I watched Mia and Kyle being led away like beaten dogs, and I felt nothing. This was just the appetizer. The hospital room erupted into chaos as reporters swarmed the officers. My parents remained in their pathetic positions, one standing, one kneeling, faces a mess of shock and dawning realization. They looked at me with a strange, new fear. I ignored them. I walked up to Riley Thompson, the reporter who hadn't spoken yet. Mila. She blinked, shaking my hand. Riley Thompson, nice to meet you. Riley, I said, my voice low and serious. Today is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want the real story, I've got much bigger leads for an exclusive. Her eyes ignited. She smelled the blood in the water. My number's on this card. Call me. I took the card and turned to leave. Chase, a trembling voice called out. My mother was standing now, leaning against the wall, her face a smear of tears and soot. Chase, honey, I'm so sorry. My father stepped forward too, his face grim, his lips working as if trying to find an apology that wouldn't bruise his ego. I stopped and looked at them. These were the people whose validation I had craved in my last life. These were the people whose rejection had broken me more than the prison walls. Now, I looked at them and felt only a cold, hollow disgust. The moment you hit the floor to beg for mercy, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the room, was the moment Chase Miller stopped having parents. I didn't look back as I walked out of that room. Behind me, I heard my mother's wailing cry. Some things, once broken, can never be mended. The night air was cool. I took a deep breath, the tightness in my chest finally easing. Mia and Kyle were first. Now it was time for my best friend. Nate, I hope you're ready. I didn't go back to the dorms. I knew they'd be crawling with people. Instead, I found a quiet 24-hour internet cafe and rented a private booth. I logged onto an encrypted international forum. In my last life, I had spent 10 years behind bars learning from the best, including a high-level white-collar criminal. There, information was the only currency that mattered. My target was George Vanderbilt, CEO of Vanderbilt Enterprises. In my past life, Kyle had gotten away with murder because of his father's reach. George presented himself as a philanthropist, but his empire was built on blood, bribes, and tax evasion. In my last life, it took me a decade to piece together the fragments. In this life, I had the most valuable asset in the world, foreknowledge. I posted an anonymous bounty on the forum, evidence of Vanderbilt Enterprises' illegal dealings, specifically regarding the Southside Development Project. I set the reward at $150,000, every cent of the savings I had scraped together for my future startup. Giving it up to bury the Vanderbilts was the best investment I'd ever make. I leaned back, exhaling. Revenge is a systematic process. I didn't just want an eye for an eye. I wanted to pull their entire world out by the roots. My phone buzzed. A WhatsApp message from Nate. Chase, just saw the news. I knew you were innocent, man. Mia is a total psycho, and Kyle is a piece of work. Another message followed. Don't worry, I got your back. I'm already telling everyone in the class group chat what really happened. Everyone's on your side. I looked at the screen, a cold smile playing on my lips. He had said the exact same thing in the other life, right before he took the stand to sink me. I didn't reply. I checked his Instagram story. A photo of me at the hospital, taken stealthily. The caption, my hero brother. I always believed in you. The comments were full of classmates praising him for being such a loyal friend. Disgusting. I checked the university Reddit thread. The tide had turned completely. The people who were calling me a rapist an hour ago were now calling for Kyle's head. Rich boy sets fire for love? What a psycho. Mia Sterling is the ultimate snake. Public opinion is a weapon. I intended to wield it until my enemies were nailed to the pillar of shame. My phone rang. A local number. Hello, is this Chase Miller? This is Detective Miller from the PD. Detective, hello. We've processed the audio. It's authentic. Combined with the initial statements from the suspects, we're clear on your involvement. You're officially no longer a suspect. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you, Detective. However, he continued, his voice dropping, there's one more thing. During Kyle Vanderbilt's interrogation, he tried to offer an eyewitness to save himself. A witness who claims he saw you carrying accelerant into the building. I smiled. Here we go. The witness is a classmate of yours, Nate Brooks. He's at the station now, insisting on giving a statement against you. When I arrived at the precinct, Nate was waiting near the entrance. He rushed toward me, his face a perfect mask of anxiety. Chase, thank God. Are you okay? Did the cops give you a hard time? He looked me over like a worried brother. If I hadn't lived through his betrayal once already, I might have believed him. I didn't say a word. I just watched him. My gaze was so cold, it seemed to physically push him back. Chase? What's with that look? He rubbed his hands nervously. Nate, I said slowly, do you know what I hate most in this world? He blinked. Betrayal. My voice was a hammer blow. Nate's face shifted, his eyes darting around. Chase, what are you talking about? I'd never betray you. Is that so? I brushed past him and walked into the station. Detective Miller was waiting in his office. He gestured to a chair. That guy outside? Brooks? I nodded. He's Nate Brooks. The detective frowned. He says he's here to testify against you, but he looks like he's about to throw up. He's terrified because he's lying. I said, give it to me straight, Chase. What's the deal? I explained the situation. How Kyle Vanderbilt had likely promised Nate a high-paying job in exchange for a false statement. I didn't mention the rebirth, of course. I framed it as a logical deduction based on Nate's sudden change in behavior and his known ties to Kyle's social circle. The detective sighed, selling out a friend for a career. People never change. Don't worry, Chase. We'll handle this. Detective, I said, do you believe that justice might be delayed, but it never fails? He smiled. It's why I wear the badge. I don't, I said. I believe justice is something you have to hunt down yourself. The detective's smile faded as he looked into my eyes. He saw a hardness there that didn't belong on a college student. Chase, don't do anything stupid. We'll handle the Vanderbilts by the book. I nodded, but I didn't agree. As I left the office, I passed interrogation room 3. Through the small window, I saw Nate sitting there, sweating under the fluorescent lights. 2 officers were leaning over him. He wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was a coward. He'd crack in 10 minutes. I walked out of the precinct into the darkening evening. My phone buzzed. An encrypted email. I opened it in a nearby alley. It contained everything. 5 years of Vanderbilt Enterprises tax returns, internal memos, and a detailed report on the Southside Development Project. It showed exactly how George Vanderbilt had bribed city officials to secure land at a fraction of its value, and how he'd defrauded banks for hundreds of millions in loans. Every link in the chain was there. It was a masterpiece of corporate destruction. I forwarded the entire file to Riley Thompson's private email. George Vanderbilt, your clock just ran out. The next morning, the world exploded. Riley hadn't gone through the school paper. She'd gone straight to the state's biggest financial news outlet. The headline, The Dark Empire, Debunking the Vanderbilt Legacy. The article was a scorched earth expose. It had everything. Bank transfers to offshore accounts, photos of substandard materials used in luxury, housing projects, and recordings of George Vanderbilt discussing removing obstacles during the Southside construction. The Vanderbilt stock crashed instantly. Government agencies, the IRS, the FBI, the SEC, announced a joint task force within hours. Online, the fury was tidal. Burn it down. These bloodsuckers deserve to lose everything. No wonder the sun is a psycho. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I sat in the internet cafe, sipping a soda, watching the empire crumble in real time. In my last life, this took a decade. In this life, I did it in a night. My phone rang. Detective Miller. Chase, did you have a hand in that news report? He sounded stunned. I just gave the right information to the right person, I said. There was a long silence. You're a terrifying kid, Chase. But, good work. Nate Brooks confessed to everything. He admitted Kyle offered him 6 figures and a job to lie. Kyle is now facing charges for suborning perjury on top of the arson. And Mia? She confessed to the defamation and obstruction. None of them are getting away. And George Vanderbilt? He's in custody. Based on what's in that report, he's never seeing the sun again. I hung up and stretched. The Vanderbilts were done. Mia was done. Nate was done. My revenge was moving toward its conclusion, and yet I felt a strange, quiet calm. I headed back toward campus, but 2 people blocked my path. My parents. They looked 10 years older than they had yesterday. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying. My father kept his head down, unable to meet my eyes. Chase, my mother sobbed, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. Can I help you? I asked, my voice like dry ice. Chase, we were wrong. We're so sorry. She cried. We were just so scared. We didn't know the truth. You didn't know? I laughed. So, without knowing the truth, you were happy to sentence your own son? To disown me just to save your reputation? My father's face flushed a deep, shameful red. Son, come home. We want to make it up to you. Home. I looked at him. If an apology worked, I wouldn't have died in a prison cell. They stared at me, confused by my words. I didn't explain. Like I said at the hospital, the moment you knelt for the Sterlings, you stopped being my parents. Good luck with the rest of your lives. I walked past them, ignoring my mother's renewed wailing. Some mistakes are unforgivable. Back at the dorm, I became a ghost. People stared, whispered, and pointed. Their eyes were no longer filled with contempt, but with a mixture of awe and genuine fear. There he is. That's Chase Miller. He took down the Vanderbilts by himself. Don't mess with him. I didn't care. I went to my room. My 3 other roommates were there. They looked awkward, refusing to meet my eyes. When Mia had accused me, they had stayed silent. Now, they didn't know how to look at me. I started packing my things. Chase, what are you doing? One of them asked. Moving out, I said shortly. Look, man, we're sorry. We shouldn't have doubted you. We're your friends. I stopped and looked at them. Friends? Where was your friendship when I was being dragged out in handcuffs? They had no answer. I grabbed my suitcase and walked out. I found a small apartment near campus, private, quiet, and mine. The following weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. George Vanderbilt was sentenced to life for his financial crimes. Kyle was sentenced to 15 years for arson and perjury. Mia Sterling got 3 years for defamation and obstruction. Nate Brooks got 2 years for perjury. It was exactly what they deserved. But I wanted more. I wanted them to suffer mentally. I received a call from Mia's mother. Her voice was hollow. Chase, please. Can you go see Mia? She's a wreck in there. She won't eat. She keeps saying she's sorry. She just wants to see you. I chuckled. Isn't it a bit late for that? I know we were wrong. But you saved her life. Please, just see her once, so she has a reason to keep going. A reason to keep going? I felt a cold surge of electricity. When you people were pushing me into hell, did you give me a reason to keep going? I hung up and blocked the number. A few days later, a text from Nate's father. Chase, Nate's mom is sick with grief. He's already being punished. Can you talk to the school? Don't let them expel him. Give him a future. I deleted it. Nate didn't care about my future when he lied to the cops. The school expelled both Mia and Nate. Their names were permanently etched into the university's history as a disgrace. Even when they got out of prison, that black mark would follow them to their graves. I threw myself into my studies and my new passion, finance. Using the knowledge I'd gained in prison and my memories of the future, I played the market. I turned my remaining savings into a small fortune within months. I started an investment firm and recruited a few like-minded students. I wasn't just the guy who took down the Vanderbilts anymore. I was a rising star in the financial world. Riley Thompson and I became close. She had moved up to a major news outlet thanks to the Vanderbilt story. We grabbed dinner and talked about the world. She was smart, driven, and she looked at me with a curiosity that suggested she knew I was hiding a dark secret. Everything was going well until I got a call from the penitentiary. Detective Miller had arranged the patch through. Chase. It was Kyle Vanderbilt. His voice was no longer arrogant. It was thin, raspy, and broken. What do you want? I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was a monster. I shouldn't have done it. I listened in silence. My dad is gone. The company is gone. My mom divorced him and left the country. I have nothing. He started sobbing. Chase, I just have one question. Why? That night, you could have left Mia to die. Why did you save her? I waited. Then, I gave him the answer I've been holding for both of them. Because letting her live to see your family destroyed, to see her own reputation vanish, to watch you all rot in cells, that was much more satisfying than letting her die in a fire. The sound of Kyle's absolute, soul-shattering sobbing filled the line before I hung up. The sun was shining outside my office window. My revenge was complete, and my life was just beginning. Time moved fast. By senior year, my firm was a major player. I was a campus legend. One afternoon, Riley called me. Chase, you free for a drink? She sounded exhausted. We met at our usual spot. She told me about a food safety investigation she was working on. The evidence was there, but the corporate interests were blocking the story. I thought if I work hard enough, I could stop the darkness, she said, discouraged. But some walls are just too high. I looked at her, so full of idealism. She reminded me of who I used to be. Not every fight has a happy ending, I said. And not every shadow can be chased away. You always seem to see right through everything, Chase. That's because I've lived in the dark, I replied. We talked for hours. I realized we were the same. Neither of us was willing to compromise with a broken world. She used a pen. I used colder, more direct methods. As we left, she asked, Chase, is there someone you love? I looked at her firm, beautiful face and smiled. I didn't say anything, but the answer was written in the air between us. Graduation day was perfect. I was the commencement speaker. 4 years ago, I was a victim. Today, I was a success. After the ceremony, Riley was waiting with a bouquet. Congrats, Mr. Miller. Congrats to you too, Ms. Thompson. We walked through the campus trees. What's next? She asked. Grow the firm. See the world. Take me with you, she whispered. I took her hand. It was warm. My heart, which I thought had been permanently frozen by hate, began to thaw. Yes. Then my phone rang. A local number. Chase, is it you? An old, weak voice. My father. It's Dad. Your mother. She's sick. It's bad. The doctors say it's her last day. I stood still. The man who had slapped me and disowned me was now begging. Address? I said. I went to the hospital. Riley stayed by my side. My father looked 20 years older. He was hunched, his hair white, his eyes dim. He tried to speak, but the words failed him. I walked past him into the room. My mother was a skeleton. Cancer. She was hooked up to a dozen machines. I felt no hate, no pity, just a vast, empty space where a mother should have been. Chase, you came. She whispered, tears leaking from her closed eyes. I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have. We regretted it. Every day. She reached out a trembling hand to touch my face. I stepped back. Her hand fell. The light in her eyes faded, and the heart monitor flatlined into a long, haunting screech. My father rushed in, wailing. I stood there, motionless. Let's go, I said to Riley. As we walked out, my father screamed after me, Chase, how can you be so heartless? She was your mother. I didn't turn around. She stopped being my mother the night she chose her reputation over my life. A few months later, Riley and I were traveling the world. Paris, Santorini, the Serengeti. I photographed her smiles. She wrote about our journey. We were just two people in love. Nobody knew my past. In her presence, I learned how to breathe again. 5 years later, a sunny weekend, I was at a park with Riley and our 3-year-old son. He was chasing butterflies, his laughter ringing through the air. Riley leaned against my shoulder. Life is good, she said. It really is. A homeless man nearby caught my eye. He was rummaging through a trash can, pulling out a half-empty soda bottle and drinking it like it was fine wine. When he turned, I saw his face. Nate Brooks. He'd been out for a few years. He looked like he'd spent every second of it in hell. He saw me. The bottle dropped from his hand. His eyes filled with a terror so deep he looked like he might faint. He tried to run, but his legs were weak. Stop, I said. He froze, shaking. I walked up to him. He looked like a cornered rat. Why don't you have a job, Nate? I have a record, he whispered. Nobody will hire a felon. And your family? My dad died while I was inside. My mom moved away. She won't talk to me. He fell to his knees. Chase, I'm sorry. Please, just let me go. I'll do anything. I looked at him. This man who was once my brother, now a shell. I felt no joy. I felt nothing. I pulled out my wallet, took out all the cash, and dropped it at his feet. This is the last time I help you, Nate. We're even now. I turned back to my wife and son. Daddy, my son yelled, throwing himself into my arms. I kissed his cheek. Let's go home, I said to Riley. As we walked toward the sunset, Nate's sobbing echoed behind us, soon drowned out by the wind. My revenge was a distant memory. My life at last was mine. Story complete.